With the recent break in the multiverse resulting in the direct resurgence of the various interdimensional tyrants known as Kangs, Marvel Studios has promised us a multiversal war that is set to surpass anything we've seen in the MCU to date, even outweighing the stakes and magnitude of the Infinity Saga upon which the first decade of the MCU was built. This newly developing plotline promises to present the MCU fans with even greater stakes, the likes of which have never been seen before, at least as far as we know. In Loki Episode 6, the being known as He Who Remains, who is more of a benevolent variant of Kang, tells both Loki and Sylvie, as well as the audience, the story of the first multiversal war. But what if this multiversal war both has already happened while simultaneously not having happened yet? Yes, that statement sounds confusing, and we understand that, but stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we explore the possibility that the upcoming multiversal war is actually the exact same war that was fought so many eons ago, and that the MCU may actually exist on an infinite time loop. Let's attempt to answer that question today. Near the end of this video, we will be touching on episode 4 of What If, and there will be spoilers for it, but we will tell you before the spoilers begin if you're interested in the rest of the theory. The catalyst for this popular fan theory centers around the idea that this break in the multiverse is actually how the first multiversal war began. If the various Kangs of these new branching timelines follow the same path as He Who Remains says, in that they begin their relationships with civility and poise before descending into conquest, then could they in fact be completing an infinite loop that has already happened before? If the upcoming multiversal war results in the complete annihilation of several timelines, then one of the Kangs in question may become aware of the presence and existence of Alioth the Usurper. Alioth, quite famously, was the weapon that the last He Who Remains used to eliminate the multiverse as a whole, before reorganizing existence into one sacred timeline in which he was able to predetermine the course of the universe's history. This theory claims that at the end of the multiversal saga, one of the Kangs will seek to weaponize Alioth once again, with the express purpose of reorganizing the multiverse into a brand new sacred timeline, effectively becoming the next He Who Remains, resetting the MCU and allowing the events of the Infinity Saga to take place all over again. If this Kang in question reigns victorious, he will then become the new He Who Remains, and will script the entirety of the new MCU Infinity Saga without the knowledge that he had a previous iteration eons ago who came to the same decisions he would later come to settle upon. This could, in theory, mean that He Who Remains, or rather this new variant who is destined to inherit his mantle, is going to be the next ultimate villain at the end of the multiversal saga by making the same decisions as his predecessor, and coming to the same conclusion that the only way to ensure peace is to eliminate the concept of the multiverse, and rearrange the universe into one sacred timeline yet again. If this theory is true, then that means that He Who Remains, who we met in Loki, actually comes from a universe where the Infinity Saga transpired the same way as we know it, and is actually the exact same universe as the one we've been following since 2008. This would mean that the time loop serves as an infinite cycle wherein He Who Remains is killed, the multiversal war takes place until another He Who Remains wins and reorganizes the sacred timeline and the TVA, only to be killed years later, restarting the same multiversal war over and over and over again. This would mean that everything that is about to happen in the upcoming multiversal saga has actually already happened in the distant past of the MCU, complete with the same characters, story arcs, events, and interactions that we've come to know and love over the past decade. Director Kate Herron has confirmed that Kang the Conqueror scripted the entirety of the MCU. So is it possible that he wrote the events of history based on his previous experiences traversing the warring timelines from which he lived? If he fought through the multiverse as he claims, then he would have had ample time to explore the vast different realities and find one where he never came into existence. Upon figuring out which reality didn't contain a deadly Kang, he would have created the sacred timeline on the basis of this reality, regardless of whether or not he even knew of the existence of his previous self, who had so long ago come to the same conclusion. This would mean that someone like Doctor Strange or Loki would need to come across this revelation at some point in the next few years in order to learn how to differ from the current flow of time and the track that the multiversal war is following. The buildup of the return of Alioth the Usurper could be a daunting way to build up tension akin or even to surpass that of Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, given that Alioth has already established a reputation as the being that decimated the multiverse, the revelation that the same outcome is all but predestined could send our heroes into overdrive. This is the point where spoilers for What If Episode 4 will begin. In Episode 4 of What If, we learn of what are known as absolute points in time, points that cannot be altered, changed, or meddled with in any way. The what if scenario that we follow is one in which Doctor Strange seeks to learn how to reverse one of these absolutes to the detriment of his universe. What if theoretically the resurgence of Alioth the Usurper under the guidance of the new He Who Remains is an absolute point in time and is all but guaranteed to happen? And the multiversal saga concludes with Doctor Strange once again seeking a way to break an absolute point in time. He could seek to learn from the mistakes of his multiversal counterpart in Episode 4 in order to save the multiverse as we know it. This could mean that this latest episode of What If served to set up the stakes for the spell that Doctor Strange will seek to cast in the distant future, at the very end of the multiversal saga when all the tension comes to a head. This build-up in realization that our Doctor Strange will have to follow the same path as the Strange from What If could create incredibly tense stakes, as the options lie between Alioth and He Who Remains ravaging the universe, the spell going awry and destroying our universe, or Strange somehow being able to succeed. But at what cost? If this is the case, then it would be up to someone like Doctor Strange to figure out how to break the time loop and divert the current timeline from the inevitable ending where the multiverse is ravaged by the variant of Kang, who would later become the next He Who Remains. And if the ascension of the next He Who Remains is an absolute point in time, as is described by What If Episode 4, then the stakes may be being set as far back as now, preparing for the next inevitable day when this spell will resurface. But this time, instead of one reality at risk, all realities are now at stake. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? Do you think this multiversal war will play out the same way as the last one? Or do you think there's something larger at play here? I would love to hear your thoughts on this theory in the comments down below. And do you think that this is the way that Doctor Strange will ultimately find a way to defeat Kang the Conqueror? As always, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.